Breathe. When you look back at the season from hell that the Fever had, none of us expected them to be in this situation. None of us expected them to be winning a very close Game 3.
Every season has that one tale that takes over the whole sports world and gives even casual viewers the impression that they are watching a Hollywood script come to reality. That tale this year was Caitlin Clark's alleged miraculous comeback. She was portrayed in the headlines as the Indiana Fever's season-saving comeback player, the missing component who could rush back onto the floor just in time. Theories, countdowns, and even shaky practice videos that supporters said were evidence that she was preparing to perform were all over the internet. It was like seeing the greatest underdog film unfold in real life. The injured star is now rumored to be making an incredible comeback for the year's most crucial games. However, nobody was prepared for this section. The whole story that the media exploited for every click and that fans latched to was based on a falsehood. It is a whole fabrication that is concealed in plain sight, not a miscommunication or a violation of the rules. You'll view the finals in a manner you've never seen them before once you know why the narrative took off and what the Fever were actually doing behind the scenes. Basketball was not the only topic of discussion during the weeks leading up to the WNBA finals. It concerned a single query that captivated both sports programs and time frames. Is it possible that Caitlin Clark will return? Almost immediately, the story took on a life of its own. It all began with a single rumor, a post on a fan forum implying that the league's roster regulations had a flaw, a mysterious provision that would enable Clark to be triggered at the last minute. It spread like wildfire from there. Videos of Clark performing easy exercises during warm-ups went viral. Posts with theories on her unexplained absence from interviews received hundreds of thousands of views. The article was a hit on sports websites because it was the ideal clickbait. During the height of her popularity, a well-liked rookie star was rumored to be slipping back in to change the season's conclusion. The drama was only intensified by the frantic quiet. No official announcement or firm denials were made to put an end to the rumors. At least one reporter attempted to get an answer from the coaching staff during each news conference. And each time they received a deliberately evasive response, we kept our attention on the guys we now had. That seemed more like a wink to fans than a no. It was sufficient to sustain the dream. Sports talk shows, meanwhile, examined every possible aspect. The squad was holding its cards close to the vest, according to one expert. Another said that Clark was only awaiting approval and had been cleared for non-cont exercises. Dramatic countdowns to the roster deadline were made by TikTok developers. Memes abound on Twitter about her heroic landing. The storyline was already established in the public consciousness by the time the Fever formally advanced to the championship game. It might happen at any time that Caitlin Clark makes a last-ditch comeback. It was the sort of unexpected conclusion that would be remembered in league history. Nobody understood that this happy-go-lucky tale was lacking one essential element: reality. However, here is when the entire narrative starts to fall apart. The truth was quietly sitting in plain and white inside the WNBA's own rulebook while fans were busy discussing whether Clark's knee could withstand the strain of a postseason comeback. Before the first game had started, the postseason roster deadline had already passed. A team's official postseason roster is locked after it is submitted. No last-minute changes, no unnoticed gaps, and no breaks for elite athletes recovering from injuries. It's the end. For a period. And that's precisely where the narrative of Caitlin Clark's miracle met a brick wall. Clark's name was never initially on the postseason roster, per the Fever's official submission dated September 4th. That implies that, regardless of how well she felt or how loud the rumors were, there was no legal way for her to return to the court. Not only was the possibility of a covert backdoor into the finals improbable, it was impossible. This is made even more bizarre by the fact that the evidence wasn't hidden in a secret document or leaked communication. It was prominently displayed on the league's website and accessible to the general public. It might have been checked by anybody. The media decided to opt with a feel-good title instead. It turns out that there was no technique that was just waiting to be used. There will be no miraculous return. There was no crack in the door. It was sealed by welding. And it brings up a query that was never posed in the headlines. Why would the Fever voluntarily enter the most crucial part of the season with an empty roster position if they knew from the start that Clark would not be able to return? At this point, the narrative shifts from being about a widely circulated rumor to seeming like a true mystery. Consider it. During the playoffs, every roster place is extremely valuable. Teams compete for months in order to qualify for the finals, and if they do, there is very little room for error. An additional player is more than simply a bench warmer. It may be a skilled shooter who can win a game in the final 2 minutes, a defensive specialist who could stop a hot scorer, or just a new set of legs to cover important minutes when players are in foul trouble. No coach likes to enter a series with a deficit because momentum may change in a single possession. Nevertheless, the Indiana Fever accomplished just that. They only included 11 players on their postseason roster, which left the 12th position available. That choice is completely nonsensical on paper. Why voluntarily give up an advantage? Just to cover that gap, why not sign a veteran or rookie to a short-term contract? Not only was the Fever's maneuver out of the ordinary, it was completely perplexing. And this is the point at which the story breaks open. The choice to keep that position unoccupied wasn't a mistake if the team had always known Caitlin Clark couldn't be activated. It was deliberate. That one unfilled spot on the roster becomes an incongruous puzzle piece. Unless there's another aspect of the tale that no one was aware of. Fans started to wonder whether there had been a last-minute deal that didn't work out or if it was just to save cap space. However, neither scenario could account for the front office of the Fever's silence. There was no leaked document expressing remorse or second thoughts, nor was there a news conference outlining their decision. They seemed to want the subject to remain unanswered, dangling just long enough to pique interest and cause perplexity. Furthermore, confusion is never an accident in the realm of competitive athletics. Analysts, coaches, and even seasoned athletes began to question whether the Fever was playing a deeper game that extended well beyond the court. On paper, the vacant roster spot could have appeared to be a vulnerability, but might it have been a calculated move? Was this a thoughtless error on the part of the front desk? Perhaps the sort of nuanced psychological manipulation that only becomes clear in hindsight. It seems odd the more you consider it. The Fever's best weapon could have been the same thing that appeared to leave them defenseless. Picture yourself in the locker room of the Las Vegas Aces. Almost all analysts predicted that the defending champions would win the series. This is the culmination of your entire season. Each coach on your team has a single responsibility. Analyze Indiana Fever and develop a foolproof strategy to stop them. In most cases, that is simple. You observe their patterns, choose who to trap and who to release, and train your players to respond to the same offensive sets until they can do it while they sleep. However, the roster list for the Fever abruptly complicated that straightforward task. That one vacant space became a shadow that hung over each exercise. Because your whole defensive strategy must be altered if there is even a remote possibility that Caitlin Clark will wear a uniform. Now that she's off the court, you can concentrate on harassing Aaliyah Boston in the post, pack the paint, and challenge the other players to defeat you from the outside. Big scorers in the lane are intended to be suffocated by this tight, muscular style of defense. Imagine Clark being available all of a sudden. Defenses are stretched 30 feet from the rim by her shooting range. Your bigs can't just camp beneath the rim since she can lift up from the logo. She will give you a 3 if you are one step too late on a closeout. You have to spread your defenders wide in response to that type of danger, which gives slashers enormous driving lanes and corner shooters easy kickouts. To put it another way, Clark's arrival completely changes the floor's geometry rather than only weakening the Fever's attack. The coaching staff of the AC had to get ready for 2 whole different squads because of that phantom possibility. One that uses perimeter shooting to kill you, and one that thrives on an inside-out game. Suddenly, every practice, drill and movie hour had to be divided between 2 diametrically opposed ideologies. Time lost. Additionally, every minute of preparation is crucial for the finals. The Fever caused the reigning champions to expend valuable resources in anticipation of a ghost they knew would never materialize by remaining silent and keeping the roster place unfilled. It wasn't luck. It was chess. Psychological warfare masquerading as a peculiarity in paperwork.